Alright, this is what I'm doing. Trying to find B-roll to put on the frickin' videos is just a pain in the ass. And trying to find somewhere quiet around here to video is even worse. So I think I spot a spot. The weather's been the shits. It's windy. It's blazing in off the ocean. Gray out. It looks like it's gonna piss rain, so it's kind of screwed me for it's gonna rent a motorbike and head her up into those hills up there. Jump into the jungle and go explore and take you guys with me. Make some videos up there, but I'm gonna wait. Sorry, the day's 3/4 way through right now anyway. So I think I spied a place on the other side of this lake where there might be no wind and might not be any bad background sound. Now, what am I doing? Digging and learning. I'm working. I'm doing a lot of work. I'm trying to complete a website for a friend of mine. Working on the second book. Working on these videos. Working on me. And getting beat up in the gym. I'm in pain right now. And that's what I'm doing. Sarah's gone home to man the farm. It's definitely kind of different being here by myself. But it's easy for me to get work done and stay focused. So I'm gonna do that for another couple weeks. And then I was gonna go on some solo jungle terror possible excursions in a different part of the world. But I decided I'm going to instead go to this gym for a couple weeks and get all my projects done, and then go home and tackle other items with a vengeance. So there. Now I see there's a bunch of there's a bunch of cattle across from going. I hope there isn't a bull over there. I'm gonna find out, but I'll be back shortly. I'm gonna cross this little rickety bridge. I've been watching this water to see if there's any fish in here. Something's rising for sure. I don't know if it's turtles or catfish or frogs or gators or what, but there's something in here for sure. Maybe I'll know in a minute if I keep on looking. All right, there's enough green around here. You shouldn't be so skinny. What's going on, Mom? Huh? Hey, what's going on? You are one small chunk of beef. How about you? What are you doing? Hey? Why are you so skinny? Huh? You are one skinny chunk of beef too. Huh. All right. Carrying on, I'm gonna find somewhere to share some emails. I don't think there's gonna be any snakes in this flat here. Not a big snake fan myself in a foreign country. I don't give a shit about them at home, so there's no venom. But here, I'll bet there's stuff down in here. All right, I can't do it. I can't get out of the wind, and the only places where there isn't any wind, there's a shit pile of noise. So you're gonna have to bear with me with some lame ass. Well, it might not be lame ass, but you're gonna have to put up some B-roll for one more. There's somebody's fishing over here. I want to go see if they caught any. Definitely a local. And one thing is no short of these dogs. Look at these dogs. What are you guys doing? A little laid back, eh? A little too hot for you guys? Yeah? What do you think? Not much? Leave you alone? All right. There's no shortage of dogs just randomly running around. There's one with a big hobble. weird ass sores on him. Me and Sarah bumped into him everywhere we went. He'd follow us for a while, then leave. And we'd bump into him on a beach and he'd hang out with us for a bit and he'd leave. I guess he had his route nailed down for getting treats. But anyway, I'm gonna walk over here. I'm gonna see if this guy's friendly or not, and see if he just might show me what kind of fish he's catching. Check it out. Oh, you catch fish? You catch fish? Yes? You catch one? Oh, look at that. All right. It's got an earplug on there. Let's see you catch one. Here we go.
Big one.
Big one.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's one. See?
Uh-oh.
Yeah. All right. Copper crab. She's killing it. Cool. All right. Onward with my trek. I don't know what kind of fish is in here. There's got to be some bigger ones. I've seen something out there jumping around a few times. Seen a big brown lizard that may have been a foot long and copper colored laying on a rock, but he's too quick. I couldn't get my video camera out of my bag and videotape him, but I don't know what this is about. There's a ladder going down here. Oh, it's like an outlet from the street water. Yum. Just a few items have washed in from the streets. Don't see any body parts. I'm not gonna go looking either. There's lots of human footprints down there, like somebody's fishing in there maybe. I don't know what the hell they're doing down there. There's a lot of human traffic footprints right there. Weird. Creepy. This looks like cattle crap. A little different. All right, I'll see if I can get you guys something better to look at while I get a lot of voices heard, all right? Bear with me. Actually, there's something down there. Oops. That's a dead something. Looks like an eel or a snake. I'm gonna say it was an eel. Anyway, here we go. I'm gonna walk back while I share some emails. Right? All right, I made it back. Here we go again. I don't know what kind of B-roll I'm gonna have to attach onto this video, but the video clips that I created on the way back weren't long enough, so I have to fill up something else. So you have to bear with me, all right, you guys? Now, oh, quick note, that dog across the road, that was the dog that me and Sarah ran into everywhere. This just about fell over when I just talked about him to you guys, and then there he was across the road getting a treat from somebody. That was pretty random. Anyway, let's get these voices heard. They're important. Listen to this. This is a email titled Story from Mount Curry, which is where I've been living the past handful of years before moving onto the island. Now listen to this. Hey Steve, hope all is well with you, Sarah, Adventure Pup Ruby, the goats, the gangster chickens, and the shittens. Oh well. First off, I just want to say thanks from all of us here at the Round Table of Knowledge. You've helped us all in so many ways, including myself, not only with the Sabe topic, but helped me become the blacktail hunter I am today. Right on, man. That's good news. I'm glad to hear it. I'm going to try to keep this short and sweet, but you know how it is. LOL. I'm born and raised in the BC Coast Mountains on a reserve north of Pemberton. I'm sure you're familiar with this area. Do you think? I've shared a story with you recently via Messenger about a couple of friends who had a rock thrown at their car and saw something big run across the road that let out a loud scream on the Duffy Lake. Yeah, man, I actually mentioned that email when I was on my way up north to go hunting, and I stopped right there and videotaped a bit. As you most definitely know, the area I live in is a hot spot for these encounters and experiences. I have stories to tell myself, but today I'm emailing you to talk about a friend's experience he had right here on my reserve of Mount Curry, BC. The same place I've had strange experiences, my girlfriend, and many of my friends and community members. I truly believe I live in a cluster zone. Yes, you and we do and did, without a doubt. People are going missing here in these mountains, and it's very strange and unsettling. Back to my friend's story, who gave me permission to share this with you. Him and I went out to do firewood one day, and I popped the question on him about Sabe, and he in full detail told me what he had happened to him in the hills surrounding my reserve and the neighboring community of Owl Ridge. Yeah, man, Owl Ridge has had shit piles of sightings. Shit piles. Well, you know as well as I do. It's all around there nonstop, year-round. As I remember, you had mentioned something about a guy who lives in Owl Ridge who has heard something screaming on his property. Anyways, my friend was hiking with other friends one day, and he said it was at the end of their hike as they were descending down the mountain. He was as well ahead of the group, and out of nowhere got this weird sensation, and he tripped and fell forward flat on his face. When he stood up, he was behind the group of friends that were hiking down the mountain. He said it happened basically in a blink of an eye. I was shocked to say the least, but mostly intrigued. Did he fall through a portal? My friend and many others, including myself, think he may have fell through a portal and it spat him out on the other side, which is why he was behind the group when he was well ahead to begin with. Is that why there's so many people going missing without a trace? Are they falling through portals? Crazy shit, right? LOL. Anyway, Steve, on behalf of us here at the Round Table of Knowledge, we truly appreciate you, my friend, and thanks again for all you do. Keep your head on a swivel and watch your six. P.S. That mule deer you got this season was an absolute tank. Kelly Dan, my man. Yeah, the mule deer was a bit of a freak, wasn't it? You know what? Just for you, I've been hammering away up north for a few years now, and I decided after my monster blacktail disappeared, I decided I would get back up north and see about looking into new territory and grab myself a big mule deer, and I did it. And yeah, that thing was a absolute freak of frickin' nature, man. That's the first time ever in my life I've had to use a winch to quad a deer. I have to use a winch to get a deer on my quad. What the hell's up with that, right? But anyway, another quick note to you, Kelly. My monster blacktail showed up again. I got a picture on the trail camera. January. How crazy is that? I'll share that publicly later. But anyway, back to your story. I'm going to text this to Dave Pilatus. I'm sure he's going to be interested in that. And I know of an elder in Squamish Band, and there's a few of the elders in the Squamish Band who basically know which mountains around the Squamish Valley have portals on them. There's nothing new with both First Nations and non-First Nations people, right? People who know how to think for themselves and are open to the real true facts of what's going on anyway. I think your friend's lucky. Now, is it specifically a portal he walked into? I don't know myself, okay? I know that there is some real weird things going on when it comes to that department. Our elders from the island, who I'm in contact with nonstop, also noted the same thing on the beach, one of their communities, which numerous people have seen. They've seen animals fly in, birds fly in, fly out, dogs stick their head in and pull back out and act like nothing's happened. Pretty bizarre, right? And that's why I always say, wouldn't it be freaking wicked to use some like 100-pound braided line and toss a GoPro in one and just let it sink for a bit or whatever it's going to do? Yeah. Anyway, Owl Ridge. A friend of mine used to live in Owl Ridge, and his neighbor, actually, I think you may have heard of him, you may not, if he died in a head-on collision up at Darcy just a little while ago, rest his soul. But this is a handful of years ago. He emailed me and told me that man's family, the back of their home, they live, so that would put them on the northeast side of Owl Ridge, okay? Up on the left as you're driving in from this side, from the Pemberton side. Anyway, a frickin' mountain goat came running into their front yard, absolute gasping for breath, and it stood on their front lawn and laid down on the front lawn for the whole freaking day. Now get this. Actually, it's his wife. She also noted that there was something real big and black inside the timber just off to the side and behind the house, and it wouldn't come out of the timber. So, how crazy is that? And it doesn't take too much of a brain surgeon to figure out what happened there, right? Whatever it was, I don't know how that mountain goat made it from those cliffs to Owl Ridge. First off, through that timber without getting whacked or without getting caught, right? Because if the pursuit started up in those cliffs, there's no frickin' way a mountain goat could make it from the bottom of those cliffs through the timber to those houses before one of those beings could just basically scoop it up. There's no way. But what else? But you know what? On the mountain goat note, though, I did see a videotape of a young guy from Pemberton up on the Hurley. I think him and his friend or his dad were standing by the pickup truck, and a frickin' billy goat came running down the logging road, ran right beside their pickup truck, which they were standing in front of 20 yards down in front of it, and continued to run straight at them and ran past them on the road like they weren't even there. They videotaped it with their phone. Seen the video. Crazy, right? What else can I say about Owl Ridge? Too much. You know, one time I drove up through your community, and I went through the back road by the power lines. You know, you can drive through the power lines to Owl Ridge. And I stopped shy of the dump up on that little power line road. And everything was absolute dead quiet. I was kind of nosing around, seeing if maybe there might be some footprints in that soft dirt, right? And all of a sudden, something went. I was stood there for probably 15 minutes, just kind of hanging out. And then all of a sudden, about 100 yards from me, something went ripping through that timber. It sounded like a bulldozer going towards your community. But anyways, what else can I add to that? My farrier that I used to use in Pemberton, you probably know who he is, right? He actually came over to my house a handful of years ago. My girlfriend is out in the driveway, and I was going out to meet in the driveway to get my horses done. And she said something about the laughing, because I was just on the Sasquatch topic, and she didn't want nothing to do with it. She come outside, she's gonna go somewhere, and on her way passing through, she looked at the farrier and said, "Oh, don't get Steve talking about his Sasquatch," in a sarcastic tone. And he looked at her like looks could kill. And he goes, "What, you think there's something funny about that? Because they're real, I seen them too." And I'm like, "What?" She left. Obviously, she didn't want anything to do with that. And he told me that he was going up to the, I guess it's still called the new site, right? So he's coming up from the paved road, you know, right where you cross the bridge. He just crossed that bridge in the Birkenhead. And he said that this thing came ripping from the left of the road to the right of the road. Its waist was well above his truck, and it was stooped over. And he said that the speed, not only the size, but the speed of it was what really scared the shit out of him. And he also said that still today, when he crosses that bridge and goes up that straightaway before your community up there, that he pins it. He hits the gas. And he knows he's friends with a lot of people that live in the community up there. And he had another elder woman who's seen them outside her window, and she's got recordings of them screaming outside her her house. You've probably heard of that too, right? And I think she has some plaster footprint casts as well. The list goes on. You know, what did I live? I lived around there for what, 16, 18 years or something. And when I was looking intentionally for people who had firsthand encounters around basically from Squamish to Pemberton to Mount Currie to Lillooet, it was far easier for me to find a Sasquatch experience story than it was somebody saw a cougar, and that's a fact. What else? You know what? I don't know if you know the people who live on the house, the small ranch, on the other side of the Birkenhead. So to get to their place, you cross the bridge, go on to the new site, hang immediate left, and go up that road to their place. I will guarantee you that whoever lives there has a shitload of stories. I would bet the farm on that one. I don't know if you know them or not, but if you do, have a chit chat with them and get back to me, all right? And then, one more question for you, man. If you feel compelled one day, there is a native girl, super nice girl, shit, I forget her name, and she cuts hair, or she did cut hair, she probably still is there at that hair place called Mint, across in Petra, Canada. And I don't know if it's still her boyfriend or not, but her boyfriend at the time, so we're talking what, probably, I don't know, 6, 8 years ago, he broke down on his motorbike down by, what is it, Port Douglas? Port Douglas, I think. Way down valley, right? And for all you listening, way down valley from Mount Currie, if you keep going, it comes out at Harrison. And we all know about Harrison, right? Anyway, this kid was ripping on his dirt bike in the evening. Dirt bike broke down, and he was past the Narrows. And he looked, and he's walking back, looks across the river, and there's 3 of them standing there, and he got a picture of them on his cell phone. And my farrier saw the photo, and he said they are definitely not human beings. Anyway, Kelly, if you know who I'm talking about, I'm quite certain he's going to still have that photo somewhere. And if you feel compelled one day, man, hunt him down. See if he'll share that photo, and you can share it with the people through me if you want. Or not. But I thought I'd just run it by you because you're right there, right? You're basically rubbing shoulders with these people. Anyway. But again, thanks for that email, man. I'll send it off to Dave. And make sure you email me back with whatever else you got, all right? Because, I'm sure a pile of the shit you got to share with me I've heard already, but I wouldn't mind hearing it again, or new stuff that you might know of as well, all right? Because every little bit helps people that are slapped in the face with this shit and they didn't ask for it. Anyway, keep following my other stuff too. I'll start posting on there again. I'll show it, and I'll have a video of that huge blacktail here pretty quick too. Once I get back, I'm gonna go straight back to Whistler and go hit some cameras and hike into my spots and carry on. But anyway, appreciate that email, my man. Stay in touch, all right? And see if you might be able to be our detective and find that photograph for the gang here. I'm sure they'd love to see it, right? Now, who's next? All right, what do we got here? This email is titled, second email, follow-up to, quote, our friend the goofy Bigfoot, end quote. Sort of long. All right, got nothing but time. Hello, Steve. I only found your channel about a month prior to submitting my story and was lucky enough for you to have read it in early December 2022. The one with the horse giving you lots of loving. You made a grown man cry that day, as the only 2 people to have ever experienced what I did from the same Bigfoot are both dead and never got the opportunity to be heard without ridicule. That's very unfortunate. Since following your channel, I've realized how lucky I was for you to randomly pick my story so early after submitting it. I've tried to follow up several times with the rest of the story and more, but it's just too damn long. Every time I try to write the full story, I go back and it takes over an hour to proofread. We're talking over 25 years of interactions. Hopefully, you can vaguely remember the story and help the viewers by summarizing it for me. I can remember you had a hard time pronouncing Monongahela River. No, let me do that again. Monongahela River. Monongahela River. Anyway, in southwestern Pennsylvania in Greene County, starting in '79 as a 12-year-old boy, I had multiple face-to-face and voice interactions, probably over 50, with a lone Bigfoot that me and my childhood friend nicknamed Goofy because of his unique laugh. between 1979 and 2005. My friend died in 1990, but could never really handle our secret. In fact, after our initial encounter as 12-year-olds, our friendship faded year by year. I got closer and closer with the big guy, and my friend became more afraid and eventually turned to drugs and alcohol, either as a result of our secret or his shitty home life, or both. I'm 55 now, and I've been a truck driver since '88. I've been to 46 of the lower 48 states multiple times and haven't seen or heard from any Bigfoot other than from the one where Goofy resides in Greene County in southwestern Pennsylvania. Our very last encounter in 2005 that scared the shit out of me, when I had my 13-year-old, at the time son, with me, convinced me that it was time to leave him alone. You must understand that as a 12-year-old, that I imagine Goofy was probably not much older than me when we met. Over the next 25 years or so, I believe he went through as many changes as I did mentally and physically, which changed my perception of him over the years. There were periods where I had all the time in the world to interact with him, and periods of time where a year or two would go by before I could get back to the woods. I believe this time apart let him experience life in the woods as nature intended and grow more wild every year. Looking back on it now, I believe he was either an outcast for some reason or just a juvenile looking for his own territory in the beginning. I'm not sure if you remember, but his signature move was to go down on his knees with open arms as if looking for a hug when he was ready to interact. Additionally, in the early days, he would make eye contact and smile when appropriate. That didn't happen in the later years. In the early days, I would tell him dirty limericks or jokes, even though I knew he couldn't clearly understand. And when I would laugh at the end, he would go, huh, huh, huh. I was basically putting on a performance for him, but scared shitless inside every time this magnificent beast would grant me an audience. I knew that he sensed it. Don't ask me how I knew it. But I also got the sense that he was so lonely that he longed for interactions, even though it was with a stupid human. Over the years, that would all change. I suspect because my visits to the woods became less frequent and he became more wild. I'm glad now that he became wild. I believe that eventually our relationship would have gotten him killed by an ignorant hunter. Whenever I could get back to the woods for squirrel season in the early fall, I would pack a backpack full of apples and leave one everywhere I stopped, which I knew had my scent on it. Looking back on it now, this is a huge mistake on my part. But at the time, I just wanted to hunt my woods and keep him happy from ripping me to shreds. But when I'd go back around Thanksgiving to scope out a good place to get a buck, I would always smell him first. By then, he was smart enough to know how to read the wind and when to be in it to my favor or his. I'd say 2000 was the first year that I had to check my fear at the door, as his greeting had changed from huh, huh, huh to the most blood-curdling roar I'd ever heard up until that point. First day of buck season 2000. I'm married now. 2 kids, 8 and 6. I'm a truck driver with a mortgage and sitting in the woods where no one else but me knows about him. Not even thinking about Goofy too much, although I knew he was probably aware of my presence. I hear a twig snap at my 5 o'clock, about 10 feet behind me. Then 2 seconds later, he lets out the most blood-curdling roar I've ever heard up until that point in my right ear, and he goes, huh, huh, huh. Besides being pissed off and scared, the instant I realize it's him and that he's just effed up any chance of getting a deer, I think to myself, wow, this effort's gotten huge and grown a set of balls. I think my soul left my body for an instant as how bad he scared the shit out of me. And he knew it. I knew he knew it. It pleased him. I must have been drenched in fear and adrenaline, which I imagine fed his ego. The one and only time we ever got close enough to touch is in that moment. The majority of our interactions were about 30 feet apart. He put his hand under my forearm and lifted me like I was a feather from on my ass against the tree I was sitting by to standing in an instant and patted me on the head like you would a small kitten you're trying to be gentle with. My hat askew on my head and my rifle flapping to the ground. He then proceeded to walk away laughing. I was not amused, and he knew this too. I never got a shot at a deer that day. I was too shaken. I walked out of the woods at first light, got to my pickup, and went home. Second day buck season, I walked back to my original spot. First light came and went, and I was about ready to walk out at 10 a.m., but decided to give it another hour. With the wind at my back and him just located in my scope ahead of me, as if he appeared out of nowhere, he made a sound like a squirrel barking by filling his cheek with air and hitting his cheek with his fist. I will never forget this. Then he actually pointed to my 6 o'clock to the doe I already knew was behind me, with me hoping a horny buck was following. Was he helping me or hoping I would provide him with a meal? Bracket side note, Steve. So I'm rereading this for grammar and punctuation. I realize how unbelievable this all sounds, but it's all true. And there are just too many interactions to count to be able to convey just how lucky I was, or cursed, to have truly at one point been able to consider this guy a friend. End bracket. Looking back, I know I made so many mistakes by providing him with apples and snacks and shooting a squirrel or a rabbit and leaving them to lie so he could eat. When I realized that day he was trying to help me hunt for his own gain, I knew I didn't want to witness what would happen if I had actually forgotten my morals and dropped that doe for him. I shook my head, left to right in exaggerated motion as if to say no, and put my hands up to my head as if to mimic the horns on a buck. I knew he understood, but he wasn't happy about it. He stomped, shook the tree next to him, and roared so loud. And this was our last friendly encounter. I assume the other hunters in the area had to have heard him. I hope someone didn't shoot him, and backed out of the woods that day, cursing myself for letting my fascination for him and our weird relationship cloud my judgment. That was my last up-close experience with him for 5 years. I'd hunted and fished the area successfully in that time and managed to actually get a buck 3 of those seasons. He would let me catch his scent on occasion and F with me with the classic intimidation behaviors reported by thousands of people over the years. But I always stood my ground and said out loud, "It's me, asshole, ha, ha, ha." In 2002, I was divorced and a weekend dad. I've been living in Morgantown, West Virginia. You know what? I've been there. Just 30 minutes away while married, but I had the opportunity to buy a trailer in a trailer court about 300 yards from where the tree line that led down to the railroad and Whiteley Creek from my youth, and where I knew Goofy was probably roaming as a dominant predator. I didn't hunt too much in the next few years, but I always went to my spot in April to trout fish. By then I was so depressed that I often welcomed him to come and either be my friend or rip me to shreds. I didn't care. Almost done. One particular Sunday during trout season, after my ex come to collect our kids after a weekend visit with Dad, my neighbor, a younger friend from my neighborhood, who knew how depressed I was, didn't give me a choice and said, "We're going down to the railroad to fish and drink some beer." We got to our childhood fishing hole, where the bend in the creek over thousands of years had carved a spot under the rocks where all the trout were at night, and proceeded to light the Coleman lantern and a nearby fire. I didn't think either one of us cast a line in the water as the beer flowed and the bullshit commenced, talking about each other's ex-wives and kids and just cutting loose. I soon got comfortable enough and asked if he'd ever had any strange experiences in these woods, since I knew he grew up hunting here too. I'll never forget this moment as long as I live. He was 5 years younger than me, so our paths never really crossed. And I said, "Huh, huh, huh," in a deep voice, and his jaw dropped. We then started comparing stories right there on the rocks for another hour or so. Turns out my friend Goofy was cheating on me for years, lol. He was also raised with common sense, discipline, and love of nature, which I already knew, but his conclusion that feeding it was a mistake came much sooner than mine. We managed to get home that night, a little drunk, without an incident from Goofy, even though smelling him the entire walk through the dark back to the field that led home. A week later, on a Monday, he was killed while running a backhoe for the water company when he hit an underground high voltage line. Oh my God, no shit, that sucks. Well, it took almost 3 years to get back to the woods. I'd stopped game hunting by then, but still allowed fishing. In early 2005, I took my 13-year-old boy down to my secret fishing hole. By then, coyotes that hadn't been present in this area in almost 80 years were starting to dominate the area due to underhunting in the last decade. So, I had my Colt Mark IV 45 sidearm and let him carry a .22 rifle. I smelled goofy as we were getting close to the creek, but my boy was oblivious and just happy to be with Dad in the woods. Excuse me. I had the most uneasy premonition I've ever had prior or since. Pure fear like never before. My thoughts were on coyotes, and not on my hairy old friend as a threat. From 1979 to 2005, I'd never experienced the so-called mind speak, but at that moment he said to me in my head, quote, "Get that thing," meaning my son, "out of here. I'm done with you," end quote. 2 seconds later, it let out a scream so loud from much, much closer than I thought he was. I'm pretty sure I shit myself. Actually, I know I did. My son, who I had never heard cuss, said, "What the F was that?" His rifle and all our fishing gear was abandoned, and I didn't let my boy run, but we walked quickly towards home. I downplayed the incident the whole way home, the next day and weeks following. But at age 30 last summer, he cornered me and demanded to know the truth, as he has never forgotten that day. To this day, I refuse to tell him the truth, as the only other 2 people that know it lost their lives unexpectedly. Take from that what you will. Okay, man, I get it. I understand. I absolutely understand. No explanation needed. For any non-believers or skeptics that wonder why I just didn't kill it after I knew what a potential threat he was, hear this. I had not been lucky enough to witness his juvenile years. I, nor anyone else, would ever be able to get within a mile of one of these beings without them knowing it. The day I walked into the woods with my son, armed and with a hint of malice in my heart, is the day its wild heart took over and I became the enemy. They know your intentions. I never once attempted a photo or wanted to cast the hundreds of footprints I saw or had a thought about killing him when he approached me several times with a firearm capable of killing him at my side. He snuck up on me so many times over the years that it's embarrassing and could have swatted me like a fly. I never actually heard a tree knock or saw orbs or anything supernatural. These experiences were real and in my face. Out. Thanks, Steve, for your unintended platform for the ones of us who never asked for it. Man, you are absolutely so welcome. And I absolutely thank you for sending us this crazy-ass email in. What a frickin' story that is. That's a holy shit story, isn't it? And you know what? We've heard a handful of stories similar. Crazy. Well, you know what? I'll tell you what, man. One thing I'm sure the handful of people might be thinking is, if you feel like, and you wrote this out absolutely smooth. I feel like it's probably one of the smoother reads I've ever done. Maybe it's because I got these brand new glasses. But anyway, if you feel like it one day, maybe could you possibly send us a detailed visual description of this thing? All right? Especially from the time you first saw it. Give us a detailed description of this thing, this being earlier on when you first saw it. All right? And then give us another description of it the last time you saw it. I mean, detailed as best as you can recall. Every little teeny tiny detail you can think of. All right, man? That is one hell of a frickin' story and string of experiences. And I'm absolutely sorry to hear about your friends dying. And do I believe that they died in anything related to this topic? Myself? I don't know. I haven't a clue, man. I haven't a frickin' clue. But I'll tell you what, I'm a lifelong angler and hunter, and I am somewhat superstitious myself. So, like you say, if better leave these things left alone. If you think, if your gut's telling you that someone's life, especially your son's, may be in danger, and your gut's telling you that, go with it, right? Don't go against your gut ever. Anyway, yeah, do that, will ya? Next time you get a chance. Tell us exactly what this damn thing looked like. All right, moving along. Holy crap, that was one hell of a crazy, insane story, man. Moving along. Who is next? Don't forget, take from it what you will or leave it, you guys, all right? All right, here we go. The next title, this email is titled, Puzzle Piece Please Read. All right, you got her. Here we go. Hello, Steve. My name is Darren. I am from Southern Ontario and spent my entire life living along the Niagara Escarpment. I've had many experiences in my 55 years and will email them in at a later time. This email is directly related to my fourth experience when I saw an approximate 8-foot shimmering blur pass in front of me, leaving 15-inch bare footprints. This sent me into a world of trying to figure out what it was and how it could do it. About 6 years ago, I stumbled across a video where a researcher had discovered that his sample sabe hair, when it's still... Sorry, let me read that again. About 6 years ago, I stumbled across a video where a researcher had discovered that his sample sabe hair, when it still had the hair follicle attached to it, would become translucent and shimmery when a small electric charge was applied to it. He did this by having the hair and follicle in an oxygenated liquid in a small petri dish. At that time, I was still blind and thought they were an ape. I didn't believe it, so I engorged it. My eyes hadn't opened yet. Last week, I came across another researcher. I know you don't really like that term, but this one has his eyes open, accepting these are humans and can do things we can't. He also found the sabe hair, when the follicle is attached, there is a liquid. When you push on the follicle, extends up the hair shaft, which he shows under a microscope. And the hair has little holes that the liquid comes out of. Then he demonstrates with the UV light that the hair becomes opaque and shimmers like the predator. And just so you guys know, when people refer to like the predator, that's meaning the predator being in the Arnold Schwarzenegger movie Predator. As he says, now multiply it times a couple 100,000 hairs and you would get that predator appearance that he had seen and so many others. I will attach a picture of the hair doing this effect. Now that I have grown the kahunas, Steve, to contact you, I will forward my experiences that started as a child growing up playing in the woods along the Niagara Escarpment, all the way up to my face-to-face through a window as an adult. CT in Muskoka in Ontario. As an adult CT in Muskoka in Ontario. Stay safe, my friend. Thank you for the voice you provide. And as my grandmother always told me, keep asking questions and question everything. Choose only the answers that your gut tells you are true. Your grandmother was a wise woman. Darren. P.S. for you, Steve. Okay, man, I got you. Yeah, I don't know who that is. I haven't a clue. But I appreciate that. What I'm going to do, Darren, is I'm going to text this to Dave Plattis. If anybody has got hair samples, it's definitely Dave. And see what he has to say, if he has investigated this himself or not. And, you know, when you mentioned the liquid comes through the hair, my immediate thought was recalling how many times people have mentioned an oily substance left from the fingerprints of these beings in the past on windshields or a wall or a door or whatever, right? Maybe that is the substance coming out of the hair. I don't know. Who knows? But that thought came to my mind when that was mentioned. But anyway, make sure you email me back your experiences, all right? I want to hear about it. And I'm sure there's going to be a shit pile of people here that want to hear you share as well. But definitely me too. And that's a great, great piece of potential knowledge you just shared with the planet here, all right? And I wonder, who would think of putting one of these hairs in a petri dish with an electrical charge. Obviously, they've learned something leading up to that point, right? I mean, what? The majority of people have been told to put them into a plastic bag and send them away. Have they not? And then think about who those people are that encourage people to put them in plastic bags and mail them away. And how many got the results back and how many actually got the hairs back. Right? Take note of those people who encourage that shit all the time. Anyway, I'll bite my lip before I start rambling. I think this is probably sufficient for right now. It's a little confusing trying to get the other past videos that I placed on the backup channel organized and put on the regular channel, and I screwed up on the audio. It's such a pain in the ass putting the frickin' B-roll in these videos, man, because each individual clip that I put on the video to use as B-roll, I have to physically eliminate the audio. And then what, that one where I found I had all my fishing clips in one folder on this external drive with me? Well, shit, I don't know how many was there, 10? 10 clips on there, and I left a few of them with the volume on, like a dumbass. So now I am still redoing that video and still waiting it to download onto YouTube to load it again so that the people who have extreme tinnitus, like sometimes I do, for all our listeners out there, they get to listen to it properly, right? Now, I'm going to get this one in the frying pan and get this one cooked up and get this one out to you guys as soon as I can as well. And keep carrying on with all my tasks, and I'll be back again shortly.